good evening and a warm welcome to the program. My name is Josephine Karunji, and in the studio with me is my guest for this evening, Bernard Gift Maridad. I hope I've said Maridad properly. I told you that name just makes me think of...
Yeah, you have.
Okay. Gift is 44 years old and he's been battling cancer for the last 3 years, I think.
Yeah.
Is it 3 years?
Around that.
Okay, and he's here in the studio to share his story with us, so we'll just very quickly get into it. Gift, it's good to see you. I've seen some pictures of you that were pretty scary, so when I look at you now, it's difficult to even think about the other person and think you're the same person.
Yeah, thank you, and it's been God's grace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get into your story. When did you realize there was something wrong in your body? Something was happening in your body and it wasn't normal?
Yeah, it dates as far back as August of 2017. But this started as just like pain, usual pain in my left leg. But as time went on, the pain gradually kept on increasing. And it was at that point of time that it necessitated me to see a physician. And it's from that time that a number of diagnostics were done. But sadly is that as time went on, the pain, continued to increase. And to be specific, during the Christmas of 2017, I had traveled up country for the holidays, but my stay up country was cut short because of the increasing pain, and indeed around 28th of the same month, I had to travel back to Kampala for purposes of again visiting the physician that I had visited on 2 occasions when that pain, started around my left hip.
Can you, what does that pain feel like? Because I've had pain in my leg, so now I'm beginning to think, do I need to get it checked? Explain. Was it excruciating pain? What was it like?
Yeah, this was pain that was originating around from the hip area, and it was a kind of needle-like pricks that I was experiencing, and they would literally make me uncomfortable to sleep many times. I would take some painkillers as advised by the physician, but after a very short period of time, those painkillers would cease to have any impact, and that would go on and on during the night, and it would be so terrible at night because I could hardly get any sleep at all.
And so when you were getting the painkillers, what were the doctors saying? What were the physicians telling you that they were giving you the painkillers for?
At some point I did 2 ultrasound scans, and the results that came out showed that I had some swollen lymph nodes. And the doctors, the physician that was working on me told me that, with the kind of treatment that I had been put on, that situation would be normal, but unfortunately it kept on reoccurring in different shapes until when I was told that I needed to undergo a procedure. I think that was on the 10th of January. And that procedure happened in a funny way because
this is in 2018, right?
Yes, that is 2018. I had traveled up country to Mityana for field work. Pain was too tense for me. My colleagues had to bring me back to Kampala. I remember it was a Friday. So from Mityana straight we went to that facility. For some reasons, I will not be mentioning the name of that facility because it later turned out that the first procedure that was done was actually a misguided one, that in the first place it shouldn't have happened. So I go there on Friday evening. On arrival to Kampala, I met up with these 2 doctors. They have a look at the results of the ultrasound scan. and their recommendation was that I had a condition called lipoma around my left hip, and they recommended that the following day, which was Saturday the 13th, I should straight away be taken to the theater. And indeed, because of the pain that I was experiencing, I even never thought of having a second opinion. So indeed, Saturday, the following day, early morning,
Theater.
I went to the facility. At the time when I was supposed to be taken into the facility, there was some kind of emergency, but thereafter, at around 11, I was taken into the theater and worked on.
What were they doing when they were working on you? What were they taking something out? What were they doing?
Like I said, that they told me that I had a condition called lipoma. So when they took me to the theater, they did what they called a total excision to remove that kind of mass that had somehow somewhere protruded, and to them it was that mass that, you know, was partly responsible for the kind of tense pain that I was experiencing. And the issue, the idea was that, you know, once that mass was removed, then that pain would cease. But unfortunately, that did not happen, because from around the 15th, when I was discharged from that facility and told to go back for reviews, you know, even before the time for my first review, I literally was not feeling any kind of difference in terms of the pain that I was experiencing. And now I had added on the pain for the for the procedure that was done. And from that time, you know, I kept on visiting different facilities, because I remember at some point I was admitted at Nakasero Hospital, where they did different MRIs of the pelvic, the CT scan, but again, you know, the cause of the pain could not be established. And on 25th of February 2018, I had been checked at Mulago Hospital, and I was again taken to the theater, and they did a bone biopsy, because from some of the investigations that had happened between the times when I had the first procedure, was that there was something wrong with my iliac, they called it the iliac bone on my left hip, that, you know, it was being eaten by something. And therefore, for the doctors to establish what exactly was the issue, they needed to get some particles of the bone, so that, you know, they can be taken to the lab and they ascertain what the problem was. And that could only be done by doing a bone biopsy, and that's the reason that, you know, in a period of less than 2 months, you know, I had to be taken to the theater 2 times on this, and the procedure was done on the same site.
Okay, so I think this is where you then got the information of you actually now had cancer, from the biopsy?
So when the biopsy is done, until that time, I was in the hands of an orthopedic doctor. So results come out, and indeed, the results show that there is some kind of disorder in my bone marrow. And according to that doctor, he says that now the situation is getting out from his area of specialty, and now he refers me to a hematologist, a cardiologist, and when I meet that doctor, he does recommend that we should go back to the 2 facilities where you had taken the samples of the bone biopsy, and he recommended for some tests to be done, guided by the results that had come out. And that also did take some time, because some of the results, some of the tests could take a week before the results are out. Most of the results were not instant. But one sad thing is that during the times that we were waiting for the results, you know, the pain was so tense on me. So a lot of tests were done, you know, one leading to the other, until I think it was on the 14th of March when this doctor told me that, look, here we are with the final results of all the tests that have been done. And I have two types of news for you. And I was like, doctor, let us start with the good news. And he told me that the good news is that the condition that you have is manageable, but only if you do have enough money. And then when I asked the type of bad news that was, that's when he told me that I had been diagnosed with cancer of the lymphoma. It was a difficult moment for me there and then, because I remember, you know, crying and crying for some time, and this doctor left me to cry. I was in the company of one of my sisters, so they kept on looking at me as I cried, until when I thought I was able now to listen for the translation in terms of what that results meant for me, how much money exactly do I need, because he had talked of enough money. So we went into the basics, and after all that discussion with the doctor, after asking so many questions and getting so many answers from him, we agreed that the following day, which was 15th, 3 days after my birthday, I was to go and do some tests related to the heart, so that they ascertain whether my heart was in a position to support the kind of treatment that I was about to start. And I thank God that, you know, the results came out good, and indeed on 16th I was checked in at the Uganda Cancer Institute, admitted, given all the necessary information, taken through the kind of treatment that I was going to undergo, and on 17th
you started.
That's when I had my first dose of chemotherapy treatment, because I had been told that I would do 6 cycles of chemotherapy, and each cycle would be consisting of 5 doses, and I would strictly take those doses, those cycles on ward.
So we're looking at 7 months really from when you first got the pains to when you started getting treatment for cancer.
Yes, yes.
Okay, all right, let's take a short break, and we'll be right back to hear more about your journey with cancer. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. In the studio with me is Gift Bernard Maridadi, who is here to share his story battling cancer. Gift, so many times we are told that we take our good health for granted, and it's not until you don't have the good health anymore that you then start to, you know, think back and think, what did I do wrong? Why did I not, you know, do this and that? Did you have any of those thoughts lingering in your mind at this point?
Yeah, yes I did, and because I remember at one point I was like, God, give me at least one more year, and probably I used that year to put to right some of the things that I had not put to right, but also, you know, to at least, you know, have some one more plan for my son that I only had at that time. But again, looking at the journey between August of 2017 up to the 14th of March 2018, when the final diagnosis was made, looking at the kind of time, the kind of resources that, you know, have been spent on the different investigations, all aimed at making sure that we get a final diagnosis, true. You know, I looked at all those, and I was like, at times, it's true, we do take certain things not for granted, but, you know, we don't give them the kind of priority that they would deserve.
What did you think in the middle of your tears flowing, your sister is by your side, the doctor has walked out? What were you thinking when they told you had cancer?
Yeah, I was thinking about so many things, but Josephine, before even I was told by the doctor, because many times whenever I would be given the results, at times I would be forced, you know, to ask Gogo, to ask Gogo, and, you know. So, you know, even before I was told by the doctor, you know, I already had this kind of feelings that I think I have cancer. So when I was told, and because of this narrative in the communities, because of this narrative amongst many Ugandans, that once you have been diagnosed with cancer, the only thing left for you is to die, it somehow, somewhere shattered me down, because, you know, I was looking at myself as someone that, you know, will be normal after a short while. But again, when I was admitted at the Uganda Cancer Institute, you know, on many occasions, you know, you would be seeing people failing to make it in life, passing on. And then, you know, the kind of thought that would keep on coming to my mind would be, probably I'm the next, I'm the next. But thanks to some of the doctors that, you know, many times would also come in and, you know, tell you, give you encouragement, encouraging words, tell you that, you know, everyone has got his or her own destiny. But again, remember at some point the doctor told me that the condition that I had was manageable only if I had resources. Yeah. So one other question that kept on coming to my mind was, where will I be able to get all that money that should be able to take me through all the processes of managing that kind of condition that I had been told to be having?
Had the doctor given you a sense of what amount of money you were looking at, or were you just working with the assumption of you're going to need a lot of money?
I was, when I was admitted at the Cancer Institute on the 16th of March, I was given, you know, basic information about all that, because that was the time when we were told that out of the 5 drug combinations that I would be put on, one of the drugs, which was called rituximab, was, you know, at such a cost. But he also told us that at times that drug can be found at the Cancer Institute in the pharmacy, or it cannot be found. So before I was even started on chemotherapy, you know, we had to give a commitment that we are going to be started on this drug, on this combination, including that drug, which was expensive, because 500 milligrams was costing us 2.7 million, approximately around $700 US then. So we had to make a commitment that yes, we'll be able to provide that drug even when it cannot be found at the pharmacy.
If it was in the pharmacy of the institute, it would be free?
Yes, if it was, it would absolutely be free of charge, just like any other drugs.
So if it wasn't there, you'd have to go and find it somewhere at 2.7 million shillings?
Absolutely. At least from the information that was available at that time regarding our family, we've not had any person, you know, that has had that kind of condition. But of course, one of the immediate questions that I asked the doctor after I have been told that I have cancer of the lymphoma was to be told what could be the underlying causes for that condition. But most of the responses were technical in nature, because they were somehow rotating around the issue of immunity. And I must be honest that, you know, there was no specific cause that was told to me at that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your journey been like when you think about the last 3 years?
Yeah, the journey has been characterized by so many things. There are lots of good experiences. There are lots of good lessons that have been learned, but there are also bad experiences, because, like I already shared with you, that the investigation phase took a lot of time, and for every diagnostic, for every investigation that would be taken, you know, it meant spending lots of money on it. It meant spending lots of time waiting for the results. So one of the experiences, one of the things, for example, that I learned during that period was, one, that I personally didn't know how strong I was until when, you know, being strong was the only option that I was left with. But then again, I also realized cancer showed me, you know, what family love is. But it also showed me what true friends mean, what true friends are, and people, you know, who many times pretend to be friends. Because one of the things that at some point, you know, I would think of was, you know, look, there were these so many people, there's these so many people that I called friends that I had, for example, contributed towards, you know, social events such as weddings, introductions. But it was so disheartening that at a time when we started a campaign to raise funds all aimed at making sure that I travel to India, most of those colleagues never responded the call that was being made. But the other thing that I also learned, and this is at the Uganda Cancer Institute, excuse me, is that as a country, we still have a long way to go in terms of having the necessary infrastructure if we are to able and fight and prevent the different types of cancers that we have. I must appreciate, and I would be unfair if I didn't say this, that, you know, the nurses, the doctors, you know, are doing all that it takes. Because there is, for example, one doctor, and whenever I would be taken back to the Cancer Institute, maybe as a result of the side effects, you know, by a mere looking at me, that doctor would say, do ABCD, my dad is not fine, because he's not smiling. And you know, straight away. So the doctors are doing all that they can.
And there's that personal touch that makes all the difference.
Sure. So the doctors are doing all that they can, but, you know, there are certain things that needs to be put right. Yeah. Resources particularly, because there would be days when, you know, you are in a ward of 5 people, and then, you know, the doctor comes, prescribes treatment for this person. That person does not have any money to go to the private pharmacy and buy the drugs, and the person, you know, keeps there without any treatment. And, you know, those would be also some of the moments that, you know, would make you feel very low. Yeah. At some point, you know, find yourself losing some kind of hope.
You said earlier you'd go to bed at some point and wake up in the morning and someone you were with yesterday is gone in the world.
Yeah, it would happen. You are in a ward, you're 5 people, you wake up at around 5, at around 4, if you're able to get some sleep anyway, and you realize that, you know, 2 or 1 of the beds is not in, and that would signify that, you know, that person has failed to make it, and he has been taken somewhere else. And you know, some of those experiences would also, you know, make you feel very low, and at some point, you know, seeing yourself that, you know, you're generally losing it. One thing, for example, as a result of this strong medication that I was on, the chemotherapy, at least at the end of every cycle, I would get 10 side effects characterized by developing wounds in the mouth, on the throat, on the tongue, and it would even last as long as a week and plus. So I remember, I think it was after the 3rd cycle when I somewhere made a declaration that I think I've had enough of this and I'm not going back to the Uganda Cancer Institute for another cycle. So here I was home, and my son comes into the room where I was, and he was like, "Daddy, I've been told you were not comfortable going back for your next cycle of the treatment, but I have this humble request. Kindly do one more cycle and do it for me." So I broke down, I thought about so many things. After he had moved out of the room.
How old was he?
By that time he was 15.
Okay.
By that time he was 15. So, you know, I gathered myself, I got courage, and I again was able to go back to the Cancer Institute until when I had the 6th chemotherapy cycle on the 22nd of August. That's when I had the last dose of the 6th cycle.
This year or last year?
No. That's same year of 2018.
2018.
Yes.
Hey, did you thank him? Did you thank him for giving you that push?
Yeah, I have always thanked him. Okay. I have always thanked everyone that, you know, stood by me whenever I get an opportunity, those that I personally know and those that, you know, we have not met in life.
You've spoken about how family was your biggest support, and I think one of the things I wanted to ask, a lot of us know people who are in hospital dealing with either cancer or something else, and there's always the question of how do you support, how do you come in, you know. Some people don't come in really because they don't want to, or they don't know, or they just don't know what to do. So I come to the hospital and, you know, what am I doing? What am I telling Gift? How do I lift his spirits? How do I be useful to him? For a lot of people it feels like money, but I don't have money, so how else can I help, you know? So do you want to speak a bit on that? And you also mentioned social capital, and I think that's important for us to talk about.
Yeah, and my immediate family stood with me in all possible ways. And if I could start with, you know, the kind of financial support. At some point, myself and with the little savings that I had, I could not sustain the kind of treatment that I had been started on, because I had spent most of the savings during the phase of doing investigations. So fast forward, you know, they came out with the financial support. Their immediate friends, you know, who are also able to reach out to me and give me the necessary support. And many times whenever I would be at the Uganda Cancer Institute undergoing the chemotherapy treatment, you know, they would still, you know, come over, talk to me. Many times I think we look at visiting a person at the hospital by maybe taking that person some material things, but trust me that, you know, there are a number of people who came to the facility to check on me, and, you know, a mere looking at someone sparing part of his or her valuable time to come to the facility and check on you, yeah, it would motivate you in a way, it would encourage you in a way, and therefore, you know, it is part of that healing that enables someone, you know, have a positive attitude towards the kind of condition that he or she is going through, and it really worked for me.
I think it's so much, it's difficult now because of COVID-19. So you want to go and see someone, but you're afraid that you might be taking something to them, or, you know, so with all these measures, it's difficult. But I can understand how that was for you. Gift, we're going to take another short break, and when we return, we'll be closing up and just talking about your life right now, but also how COVID-19 has come into play in just about everything that concerns our lives. Let's take a short break and we'll be right back. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us in the studio with the Gift, who is speaking to us about his journey with cancer. Gift, before we took a break, I know you wanted to just speak a bit about social capital. I know it's important to you, so please go ahead.
Yeah, social capital is the way to go, because if it was not for that, partly I couldn't have managed to travel to India after I had been referred in August of 2018, because when I had my last chemotherapy cycle, I was told of the need, the urgency of doing a PET CT scan, and unfortunately it could not be done in Uganda or anywhere in Eastern Central Africa, so I was referred to India. It needed a lot of money in order for me to travel. And that's partly the reason why, even when I was told around September of 2018, I was only able to travel in March of 2019. Why? It was all because of resources. And there are so many people that came out, you know, and made generous contributions towards that cause. I will not mainly talk about the people that, you know, I already knew who also, you know, played such an important role. But, you know, social media has got a number of advantages, the extent that, you know, I received tremendous support in form of social capital, but again as a result of social media, because there are a number of people that I had not met before, and that, you know, I've not been able to meet up to now. But, you know, when that campaign, when the news about that cause, you know, started spreading around around the different social media platforms, people reached out and made contribution. And like I've said, there is absolutely no doubt that, you know, had it not been for that, probably I would not have been able to fulfill the desire of traveling to India and have that referral fulfilled.
When you speak about, you're speaking about the costs in one way or the other, you've spent so much, and I'm sure offhand you can't think about how much you've spent, but just when I was doing the calculations from the few things you've mentioned, you're already in 70 million shillings from just the few things you've mentioned, and I haven't even, you know, you haven't spoken about the other things and the medications that you've had to buy. That's the great thing about social capital, and you've also spoken about social media. But
True.
social media can also put quite a dent on your spirits. It can break you. What was your experience with any negative that comes from there?
At some point, I was hesitant to give in and accept for a campaign to be run. Why? It's because of some of the experiences that I'd personally seen on some of the similar causes that have run in the past. You know, situations of how, you know, some sections of people were interpreting, you know, some of the photos of people that, you know, needed support, etc., etc. But then at some point I realized that, you know, you cannot get that kind of support that you need, not until when you have made your condition, you know, open. But all in all, I must say that to a larger extent, you know, there are so many good people out there. There are so many good people out there, to the extent that, you know, even when they see that the interest is not about, you know, getting details about your condition, but they are able, you know, to provide that kind of support that you would be needing, or making a contribution towards the cause, so that at the end of the day you are able to fulfill the desire that you'll be having at the time.
Where are you now in terms of treatment, in terms of recovery? What's the situation?
So when I traveled to India in March of 2019, I was told to travel back 1 year later. That year elapsed in March of 2020, but unfortunately because of the unprecedented period of COVID-19, I was not able to travel, and I was only able to travel this March of this year. And the results that I gotten were encouraging, were good, I must say. The treatment that I was started on all the way from 17th of March from the Uganda Cancer Institute is working, and it's hoped that I will be traveling back in March of 2022, and who knows, I should be coming back then with good news as being free from cancer. But health-wise, apart from you know, a few challenges that come in and which are manageable, I'm okay, because if I didn't share with you, if I didn't tell you, for example, that at some point I was not able to walk, if I didn't tell you that at some point I was only, you know, I graduated from not being able to walk but to using crutches, and then at some point, you know, I disposed of the crutches and I, you know, started working on myself, on my own rather, you wouldn't tell that, you know, I did undergo that kind of treatment. I didn't undergo that kind of condition for all that long period of time. So health-wise, I'm not very bad off, save for a few things that keep on coming, and these are things that I had been told by the doctors that, you know, at times some of these effects, you know, take some time in order for them to disappear for good. So when they show up,
you know what to expect.
They are not. I'm not taken up by surprise. I know what it means, and I'm able to push on. And the good thing also is that I was able to resume work. Yeah.
What's COVID-19 been like for you?
In the first place, it first affected me in the way that I was not able to travel to India in March of 2020. That, you know, that was the first impact that it had on me. But then again, looking at the different categories of people that, you know, were being mentioned, you know, to be at risk of, you know, being hit by COVID, the more, you know, I would be looking at myself as part of such groups, and it created that kind of situation that was characterized with fear, that was characterized with uncertainty, and that also had an emotional impact on myself. But thanks to, you know, the different information that kept on trickling in, kept on coming in. I remember at some point when we were entering into the second wave, one of my doctors from India, you know, sent me this long email, which, you know, many times when I'm feeling low, I get back to my email, I open it and read through. And, you know, it was all about, you know, how best I need to take the precautions such that, you know, the kind of condition that I have had should not be mixed up with another condition in the name of COVID-19. I've already had my first jab of COVID-19 vaccine, and I'm looking up to the 8 months after they have elapsed. I hope that by that time, 8 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, 8 weeks, apologies. So 8 weeks, it's my hope and wish that by that time we'll be having more vaccines, and I should be able to go and take my second jab of COVID-19 vaccine.
How's your family now? I know they were greatly affected when you were in the hospital. You have 3 kids now, and your wife, and, you know, your siblings. How are they doing? They are doing fine.
I need to mention that at the time when I was started at the when I was admitted at the Cancer Institute, I think by God's grace, before then, I had one child, one boy. So between that time to now, we now have 2 children, two more. So in total there are 3. My other family, my sisters and their husbands, their children, they are all fine.
Okay.
And we are looking towards that one time, you know, when we should be calling a few of our friends, a few of our colleagues
for Thanksgiving,
once this COVID-19 is no more, so that, you know, we have some Thanksgiving, and we thank them because they have walked this journey with us, and there is every reason for us to, one, celebrate this journey, but also appreciate and show them that, you know, we don't take for granted all the kind of support that they did extend to us at a time when we badly needed that support.
Gift, we've come to the end of the time allocated to us, but in closing, you mentioned yourself earlier that when somebody's told they have cancer, it's usually they look at it as a death sentence, but you've come this far, and perhaps for you to give some encouragement to somebody who's watching who has cancer or has a loved one with cancer, what would you like to say in closing?
Yeah, one, it may not necessarily be cancer, but for any condition, mindset is the first set of treatment. Having a positive mind about the condition. When I was told about the condition that I had, it took me some time to come to terms with it. But the moment when I was admitted at the Cancer Institute, and people started coming in, thanks that by that time we did not have COVID. Yeah. So people would come visit me, talk to me. So as more people kept on visiting me, I kept on now having a different picture of the kind of condition that I was having. I will again emphasize on the issue of social capital. Social capital is something that everyone needs to embrace, because we all know that when it comes to the issues of health care service in this country, we are not doing the best. We are not doing the best, and therefore, for such conditions that require such huge amount of money in order for one to get treatment, in order for one to get the care that he or she deserves, then we find ourselves with no better option, other than embracing social capital. But Josephine, I also have a call that I need to make to our government, that we need to invest a lot in early detection of all the different types of cancers, because there is absolutely no doubt that once early detection has been made and a person has been started on treatment, then there are so many chances that that person is going to beat cancer. So it's high time we invested lots of resources at the domestic level into programs that are all aimed at making sure that one, the communities are sensitized about the different types of cancers, but it's not stop at sensitizing them. We also need to do detection, because if this country, for example, can invest half of the money that has been invested into the HIV response, trust me, we can make tremendous achievements towards the fight against the different types of cancers in this country.
Thank you so much, Gift. Thank you for taking the time, for openly sharing about your story. I believe it has given hope to somebody else, to families that are in the same boat and are trying to find a way to support their own. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
And thank you so much for hosting me. Thank you so much for picking interest in this story, and it's my hope and wish that it should have a positive impact on one or two people out there.
Thank you, Gift. Well, that brings us to the end of our show for tonight. Thank you for watching. Coming up is NTV Weekend Edition.